I'm going to be doing a story time of my labor and delivery with this baby girl right here, how she was brought into the world and everything that goes along with it. So I had her on October 23rd, 2019 at around 5:30 p.m. I believe, but my labor started that Sunday. I had her on a Wednesday. So my labor started that night with some small contractions, but I was timing them and they were pretty close together. But they weren't very strong. I thought they were more Braxton Hicks contractions, but they kept going all through the night and my contractions never really stopped until I had her on Wednesday. So I had a very long and tiring labor. So that Sunday night I started to get little contractions, but I was kind of timing them and they were like 3 to 5 minutes apart. The contractions weren't very strong, so I just went to bed. I remember they woke me up a couple times throughout the night, but I knew it wasn't time to go to the hospital yet because they weren't very strong at all. And then Monday, when I woke up, they started to get a lot stronger. So me and my mom went out, and one thing you can do to like hurry your labor along is walk. So we went to the mall and we walked around the mall and we walked around downtown Ann Arbor. Even though it was October, it was actually pretty warm outside. So we walked around and then we went into the hospital to get checked because I was still having those pretty bad contractions. When I got there, they measured me and I was about 2.5 centimeters. You have to be like at least 4 centimeters for them to admit you. You also have to be 39 weeks and I was 38 weeks and 6 days. So I was 1 day away from being 39 weeks. So we just went home and I just had to get through the contractions while I was at home. Monday night was a very long night. I didn't really sleep at all because I still had the contractions. I woke up Tuesday, I got up, I ate breakfast, and then I got in the shower, and while I was in the shower, my contractions got so bad, like they were so painful to the point where like I wanted to cry. And they were very close together again. So then we ended up going to the hospital. It was me, my mom, and Ariel's dad. We all went to the hospital and I went and got checked and I was only 3 centimeters and I was so mad because I was in so much pain and I did not want to get sent home. And they could tell how much pain I was in, so they sent me to actually go walking around the hospital. They usually do that to speed the labor along, like I said, and I was so close they didn't want to send me home. So for 2 hours, the 3 of us walked around the hospital. We went to like the cafeteria and like all of the different hospitals are combined. So like the labor and delivery is in Mott, and then we went to like the general hospital and then like the cardiac hospital. And we walked all around the hospital for 2 hours. I was in so much pain. I was getting the worst contractions. Walking around while you're having those really bad contractions is really painful, but I did not want to get sent home. So I just did my walking around for 2 hours so I could be admitted. So after the 2 hours, we went back to labor and delivery and they put us back in triage and checked me. When they checked me, I was finally 4 centimeters and I was so happy because I did not want to be sent home. I was ready to have this baby. I was pregnant for 39 weeks. Like, I was ready to meet her. I just did not want to go home. So after that, we got admitted. It took a little bit, but then we went back to the delivery room. So they have like delivery and recovery rooms. You start in the delivery room. So we went into the delivery room and not much happened that night. I actually ended up doing some homework while I was there. I was doing like a quiz for one of my online classes. And we were just kind of chilling. They hooked me up to the monitor like for the baby. But my contractions were kind of still the same. They weren't getting worse and they weren't getting better. So the nurses came in again and they checked me again and I was still 4 centimeters. So they asked me, they were like, do you want to go home? I was like, no, like I'm ready to have this baby right now. I do not want to go home because I was still getting painful contractions. I did not just want to sit at home knowing that I was 4 centimeters and nothing was happening. So that night they made the decision. It was kind of later at night by that time. It was maybe like 10, 11 o'clock. And I was still getting contractions. So they made the decision to give me a morphine rest, which is when they inject morphine as a shot into me and then into my IV. and it basically just gets rid of the contractions for the night so that I could get some sleep and be ready to push the baby out the next day. Because at this point I hadn't gotten sleep for 2 nights because I was having contractions, and I was big and pregnant, and I was just ready to have this baby. So I made the decision just to get it so I could get some rest and have her the next day. Because when you're really tired or like in a lot of pain, usually it slows down your labor. So I just decided to get it. And I remember when they injected it into my arm, it was the worst burning feeling I have ever felt in my life. Like, it was so bad. And then like 2 seconds later, I was like slurring my words. I was like so out of it, and then I just knocked out for the night. After that, we woke up. I don't remember around what time, but I remember they ordered food. When you are in labor, you're not supposed to, well, people say you don't get food at all, but they gave me a vegan box, and I got like goldfish and graham crackers and like random stuff like applesauce, I think. So they got like omelets and sandwiches and shit, and I was just eating like these little snacks. Once all the morphine like wore off, they had me get up and walk around. So I walked around for a little bit. We just walked around like the labor and delivery floors, like a couple hallways. The 3 of us just kind of walked around for a little while, and I still wasn't really progressing. So then they made the decision to give me Pitocin, which, if you don't know, Pitocin is what they give you to kind of induce your labor. So in this case, they were giving it to speed along my labor and kind of help my contractions get stronger and get the baby out. So I got Pitocin, and I was still walking around, and we were just kind of waiting for my water to break at this point. And after a little while, maybe like another hour or 2, they sat me back down and checked me once again. And I think I was only like 4.5 centimeters, so I really was not progressing still, but I was still getting these contractions. So they made the decision to break my water. And getting your water broken is such a weird feeling. Like, they put like a metal thing in there, and they just kind of pop it, and it just felt like my stomach popped. Like, it was really weird. Like, it was like a popping sound, and then my stomach like deflated a little bit, and then when I stood up, like a bunch of water just came gushing out. And I remember like maybe 10-20 minutes after they broke my water, I started to get the worst contractions I have ever felt. Like, these were like the real deal contractions. They were so strong. And with her, I had back labor. So basically it's like really, really bad back cramps, and then it like radiates like from your back to your stomach and like cramps up, and it's so intense and so painful. So I had those, and I had them for it felt like forever, but it was probably like maybe 20-30 minutes. And then I called my nurse in, and I was like, I need to get my epidural. Like, these are hurting so bad. And they were so close together, it felt like I would basically get one, and then it would be like a second, and then I would get another one. So I was just in a lot of pain. Getting the epidural took forever. It took literally forever. It felt like, maybe because I was in a lot of pain, but they basically had me sit on the edge of the bed and bend over my stomach like I was leaned over the baby, and they took a needle and they would poke it. I don't know if this is normal, but they poked it in like my back and my spine like 1,000,000 times, because they have to find the right spot, and if they hit the wrong spot, it can paralyze you. So they were basically poking my back, and the whole time I cannot move. I was still having these horrible contractions in my back, like where they're poking, and it would come to my stomach that I was bent over. So like, I was crying, I was like moaning, I was just in so much pain, and I just wanted it to be over. I wanted my epidural to just be in and for it to work. So that took forever. Even my mom, like both of them said that it took forever. It took like 20 minutes, probably like 20-30 minutes again to just get my epidural in. And yeah, it felt like forever because I was still having these bad contractions. So they finally get it in. They had me lay back at first, and then I fell asleep. I remember we put on Avengers Endgame in the hospital, and I fell asleep for maybe like the first half of the movie. So there's like a 3-hour movie, right? So probably like an hour and a half I fell asleep, and I woke up to these contractions again, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I have this epidural, why am I still feeling these contractions? And they're like even worse than the first time. So I'm like, okay, this epidural is not fucking working. So I called my nurse in. I was like, my epidural's not working, like, what do I do? So they had me, first I laid on my side, and they put, it's called like a birthing ball, I don't even know, it's shaped like a peanut, and they put it in between my legs to try and get the epidural to like go more on, I don't even know, to try and get it to work better, I guess. So I laid on my side, still wasn't working. I was getting these horrible contractions. I like wanted to cry. And then they had me sit up, and I actually took a video, and this was an hour and a half before I actually pushed her out, before she was out of my stomach. So this was really close to when I started pushing. They had me sit up. I had a cup of ice in my hand, and I was like kind of like sitting, they put the bed all the way up, so I was like sitting in a chair basically to try and get the epidural to work. And my face, I was making like the worst face. You can like see in the video how much pain I am in. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, y'all need to give me something else for this pain, because my epidural is obviously not working. So maybe a couple, like 10 minutes go by, and I call my nurses back in, because you can get something other than an epidural. Like, if you don't want an epidural, you can get laughing gas, or you can get the morphine like I got when I slept. So I was like, can I get like something else? Can I get the laughing gas like while I'm pushing or something? Because these contractions were so bad, like you can't even explain them. Like, it's like the worst, like back, it's like you're getting a Charlie horse in your back, and then like it moves to your stomach, and like your whole stomach is like cramping up on a hard object because there's a baby in there. So like, it's just the worst feeling. And at that point they were like, let's just check you and see if you're close to pushing, because if you are, we're just gonna have you push through the pain. And I'm like, what? Like, I just have to push through this pain? I did not want to do this. I did not want to have a natural labor. Like, I didn't want to really feel all of that, because I do not have a high pain tolerance at all, like at all. So they checked me, and they were like, oh my god, you're at 10 centimeters, like you're about to push right now. And I'm like, oh my god, like it's been what, like 2 hours since they broken my water, 2-3 hours maybe. I'm like, that went so fast. Like, for other people it takes like hours for you to get anywhere near 10 centimeters. Like, I went from 4 centimeters to 10 centimeters in just a couple hours. So I progressed really fast after they broke my water. So they told me, you're ready to push. A whole bunch of people came in. It was like maybe like 3 nurses, and then the main OB that's delivering your baby, and then there's 2 medical students, because Michigan is a teaching hospital. So the 2 medical students were actually the people that were like kind of delivering her, and the OB was kind of standing back watching. So I was still having these terrible contractions, and they were like, you're just gonna push through it. They put my feet, or my legs, all the way up. Like my leg was like all the way up here. I was holding on to my legs, and they were basically like, you're gonna start pushing. Honestly, a lot of this is a blur, because I was in so much pain, and I think your brain kind of just blocks out that pain. So a lot of it is a blur, and I don't really remember a lot of it. My mom and Ariel's dad had to tell me a lot of what happened, because like I was so out of it. So they leaned me back, they had me put my legs up, and what they do is they have you, once you feel the contractions start coming, they have you push for a long ass 10 seconds. Those 10 seconds feel like 10 years, because you can't breathe. You're just pushing out, like you can't breathe in or out. And they have you take a second break and then push for another 10 seconds. And this is all while getting a terrible contraction. So it felt like forever. It felt like I was pushing forever. And then they have you like break in between, like when you're not getting a contraction, they have you just break. And I remember I was getting so nauseous. I was so hot. I remember they gave me a cold washcloth to like put on my forehead because I was so hot. They put it on my forehead, and then I started to get a contraction. I took it and I flung it off, and I like threw it across the room. I was just so out of it. I was so ready to get this baby out. Like, I just did not care. You think when you're in labor that you would care, that like there's a bunch of people staring at your vagina and like a bunch of people just watching you give birth to a baby. But in that moment, when you're in that much pain, like, you just do not care. You don't care who's in there. You don't care who's watching. You just want to get the baby out. So I felt like I was pushing forever, but I only pushed for 45 minutes, which is pretty good. A lot of people push for 1-2 hours. So I got her out pretty fast. I think that was because I was feeling the contractions and I like knew where to push and when to push. Also, when I was pushing, I got very nauseous because of the pain. I only pushed for 45 minutes. Her head came out, but her shoulder got stuck. So this is where stuff like got crazy, got such a blur. I like saw her head come out, but then next thing I know, they were like, her shoulder's stuck, and every single person in the room, so all of the nurses, all of the doctors, the OB like came forward. They all put both of their hands on my stomach. So this is like 5-6 pairs of hands on my stomach, and they all pushed down at once. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, why are you pushing on my stomach? It's because her shoulder got stuck and she was basically just stuck there, and I couldn't like push her out myself. So they put their hands on my stomach and they pushed down, and she came out. And I remember I was so happy. Like, all of a sudden I didn't feel any contractions. She came out, they put her on my chest, and her eyes were open and she was just staring at me, but she wasn't crying. So it was like kind of a scary moment, but she was just looking at me like blinking. So I was like, oh, she like has to be okay. But I was saying, like, I have some videos that my mom sent me. I was saying in the videos, come on, cry, cry. Like, I wanted to hear her cry, because that's a sign of like the baby's okay, she's breathing. So after a little bit, she started crying. I started crying. Like, I was like, oh my God, it's just the weirdest feeling. Like, right when she came out, I was like, oh my God, like, that's my daughter. Like, I just recognized her. I don't even know how, like, I don't know. We just had that immediate connection. I automatically knew, like, that's my daughter. That is the person that has been inside me for 9 months, that I've been talking to, I've been ready to meet. And I don't know, I just recognized her. It's the weirdest feeling, honestly, and you're filled with so much love. But so they laid her on my stomach, and they started delivering my placenta. I was mainly focused on her, and like I said, a lot of this is just a blur. I was so out of it. I couldn't believe that I had just gave birth. I really could not believe that I actually like had a baby. Like, it's just the craziest feeling. And I was just in awe the whole time. And they took her and weighed her. When she was born, she was 7 pounds 13 ounces and 20.5 inches. They cleaned her up. They had her dad hold her, and then my mom held her, and we sat in there while we were waiting for the recovery room to get ready. After birth, you still have afterbirth contractions, and it's basically your uterus going back down to its normal size. So I was still having these contractions. They weren't as bad, but they were definitely still to the point where I like had to stop and just kind of breathe through them. The first day that she was out, she did not cry once, like at all, other than when she first came out. She didn't cry at all, and she was just awake the whole time. Like, usually newborns, they sleep, they have their eyes closed right after they get out, but her eyes were open. She was looking at us. That was Wednesday that I had her, and we didn't leave the hospital until Friday afternoon. Usually you leave 24 hours after you have her, so I was supposed to leave Thursday night, but we had to stay until Friday for a couple different reasons. One reason is because her bilirubin level was high, which, if you don't know what that is basically jaundice. So they were trying to figure out if she needed to go under the light or if she was okay to go home. So we had to wait for them to do those tests. And then also, she was born with a hole in her heart, So your heart has 4 chambers and she had a hole between chamber 1 and 4. We had to see if it was something critical or if we were okay to go home too. It's just something that she will grow out of, but that was definitely something scary to hear, that your baby has a hole in their heart. I didn't really know at the time what that meant, if it was, you know, if it was serious. That was kind of concerning, and they weren't really telling us a whole lot. They were kind of just giving us like the basis of what we needed to know while they were still doing the test. So it was really stressful just having a baby being in a lot of pain and not really knowing if she was okay and how long we were going to be in the hospital still. It was just a very long labor. So I was in labor at home for 2.5 days, and then I was in the hospital from Tuesday to Friday. So it was a long labor. I was just ready to get home. So that is the story of my labor and delivery with her. It was very complicated, very intense, not really what I expected. She's a big girl now. I'm so happy that I have her. I'm happy that she is healthy. I would definitely go through that labor again if I had to have her. So that's it for this story time. That is how she was brought into this world. I definitely have more story times to tell and more videos coming. So subscribe and tell me how you liked it. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. You're drooling.